I'm Thurston County Commissioner Ty Menser. This morning I'm here with Director of Strategic Alliances for the Economic Development Council of Thurston County, Aslan Meade, and Stephen Bramwell, the Washington State University Thurston County Extension Agriculture Program. Welcome Aslan, welcome Stephen. Thanks for taking some time to talk agriculture with me today.
Thanks for having us here, Ty.
Thank you for the invitation.
So let's start with COVID-19. It's the first topic on almost everybody's mind. COVID-19 has touched virtually every sector of our economy and daily life in Thurston County, and I'm sure agriculture is no exception. How has the agriculture community been dealing with the impacts of COVID-19?
Yeah, it's a big question. It's I think at a high level, there's been different impacts on different farms depending on what people grow. So, folks who are selling to farmers markets saw those close, in the early days of the pandemic. Those making restaurant sales, of course, big impacts. Anybody, trying to maintain any kind of an open storefront, like a oyster bar, let's say, would see impacts. But it's evolved over time. From those impacts and what happened last year, which were more market access types of issues, have really evolved into other issues like increasing prices of goods to purchase for their supplies for their businesses, and then a really difficult time right now getting access to labor. So there's still market access issues, there's still disrupted supply chain issues, but it's kind of evolved a bit over time. And there's a little less uncertainty, but now it's, I think, we're in the middle of the summer, and we also don't know what will happen, this fall and winter. So probably another round of uncertainty, coming up.
Last year, the county allocated $750,000, and another $1.5 million actually coming up this year for support for agricultural businesses through our Thurston Strong Coalition. What impact have those funds had on the agricultural community?
I wish we kind of had switched around and you took that one, but yeah, I'm going to hand it back to you, I think, on that.
Well, yeah, again, we've seen a lot of different uses of those funds. Right now, I think last year we had comments like, I'm hemorrhaging money on operational costs. Good for folks to know that those grants went out to ag businesses, but they also went out to food cooperatives, they went out to farm cooperatives, they went out to value-added processors who actually use local product. And what's the category I'm forgetting? Farmers markets. Yeah, so each of those use those funds in different ways. I know that Joel Hansen with Tumwater Farmers Market had commented they wouldn't have opened last year if it hadn't been for those funds. So the email that was going to go out was we're closed, and the email that did go out was we're going to open, we have support. I know some farmers used it for labor saving options. I know one bought a mulch layer in order to lay down plastic mulch much more efficiently than they would otherwise be able to do that with hand labor. So it's been across the board, but I'd say probably most consistently just all the extra supplies costs. Farmers had to pivot in their market access. So instead of selling at a restaurant, maybe they're bagging out 30, 40, 50 bags to try to start up a consumer direct business operation. Well, that takes bags, it takes distribution networks. Maybe they have to buy another car, or at least get more reliable maintenance on the vehicle that's traveling more miles. So all those impacts added up to what they would then use their money, that CARES Act funding for. So just to offset the additional cost of operation.
I would also just add on a really kind of practical administrative level, like the EDC administered those funds through Thurston Strong with WSU helping to do the outreach with the farms and responses. It did allow us to increase connection with farms. Like there are certain farms that respond all the time when Stephen's doing a survey or gathering information, needs assessments, things of that nature. But this money did bring more farms out of the woodwork, and we were able to start new relationships and also gather more information from the farms and what their needs actually were and what they were experiencing. So it really was a great opportunity to just strengthen the communication systems as well. So.
One of the things that I understood sort of kind of manifested from some of the problems you've described is the Southwest Washington Food Hub. And my understanding is that the Food Hub is essentially a regional online marketplace that brings together different growers and producers, local food for distribution to both individuals and large institutions. Can you guys talk about the Food Hub, what it is, and kind of how it got a kickstart from some of the COVID challenges and investments?
Yeah, absolutely. Aslan, do you want to start off?
Sure, I mean, this has been a dream of our community for a long time, as long as I've been in this world of local food systems work. People have been talking about a food hub, the need for a food hub, the dream of a food hub, and so it really is that ability to aggregate, so to bring multiple small, our farmers, value-added producers together and be able to so go after the larger accounts has always been the dream. So like a hospital, a school district, university, things of that nature, but also groceries and restaurants, where they can go on an online platform like an online grocery store, and they can choose from multiple different products, multiple different farms, multiple different producers, and then place one order, one payment, and get one delivery. So it's a small way for a step in a direction for us to be able to compete with those larger distribution like a Food Services of America. We'll never really be able to compete at that scale or that variety of product, but it's definitely a step to make the buyer's experience easier to source more local food.
And has there been interest from hospitals, school districts, things of that nature?
There has been interest, and we've had sales. There's certainly a ways to go in getting the kinds of product variety and pricing and volume that would seal the deal with certain accounts. But it has opened all those conversations. There has been actual sales made, and then we are continuing on the process. And this year we are going after some additional funding through USDA, and to really sit down and
SDA is
the agriculture. What can I say? United States Department of Agriculture. Yes. And so to actually, the plan this year is to sit down with, we have like at least 9 buyers who wrote letters of commitment, to sit down with our producers and buyers and actually start the production plan to say how much food do we need to put in the ground to actually meet the volume and the pricing that the buyers need. So it's an ongoing process. Stephen, you want to add to that?
Yeah, when I came on sort of early on in 2016, I remember a conversation we had with Helsing Junction Farm owners, and Sue and Annie were quick to point out that there's something of a glass ceiling to consumer direct sales. If you go to the farmer's market, it is very vibrant. If you go and get a CSA share, it is readily accessible, but only 2 to 3% of food sales go through those channels. A food hub is really intended to create business opportunities for small businesses by giving them more market outlets. It can get saturated in the CSA box subscription, where you get a box of produce or other farm products, or at the farmer's market. So the food hub really helps us tackle those harder to get larger markets that Aslan was describing, by making it easy for them to purchase. So that's been awesome. I have this quote from Secretary Vilsack too. I think there's a resiliency component to the food hub here that we're after, and I think that ties in with this COVID-19 pandemic. And what Secretary Vilsack has said just recently, if I can find the quote. Historically, we've had a very efficient system, but efficiency comes at a price, and a price is the lack of resilience when you have a major disruption. So we want to have that capacity for a local food hub to distribute food to more partners so they're more bought in, through the highs and lows, the goods and bads, that kind of thing. So, but you have to make it easy, like Aslan says. People have to be able to have that single point of payment.
I think it's pretty exciting that people think of local food getting into their kids' schools and being, that's just something that is, I think everybody across the county gets excited about, thinking about putting those systems together. Are there ways that individuals can connect with the food hub?
There are, and there have been. There's about 3 different ways I want to describe. Right now, I think an individual, as long as you make a minimum purchase of $100 worth of product, you can purchase through our online platform right now. We have also done like a multi-farm CSA box. We are currently doing a gourmet food box that I know I have and Thomasina has. So there are certain product lines that we're distributing directly to individuals. That is not really what the food hub was designed for. It is designed more for those larger buyers, right. But it was part of the COVID response, that people wanted that, direct experience to be able to, have deliveries and things of that nature. Stephen, did you want to add to that piece?
Well, I think you could make a call out to all the institutional buyers out there, food service purchasers, as those institutions start to reopen, as state cafeterias reopen. We'd love to see commitment from those state cafeteria food service directors, from higher ed food service directors, K through 12 food service directors. So you can think of them as customers too, not just the person going online making a purchase. We've been leaning into the restaurant accounts, and so it has to work for their bottom line, and that's one of the challenges that we face, is just getting that price point right. And when I say we, I should really, temper that, because this is really a farmer-run cooperative. So it's run by a general manager. The farm advisory board kind of calls the shot, but it's owned, by farmers, kind of and for farmers.
And I really want to just pause on that moment and give that shout out. So the Thurston EDC, the WSU Extension, and a third organization called the Northwest Agricultural Business Center, NABC for short, we got another USDA, United States Department of Agriculture grant at the beginning of 2020, really at the end of 2019, to study a food hub. And so we were already doing outreach to the farm community. We were already forming a steering committee of producers to guide these efforts, but it was supposed to be a study. With COVID, we really responded and pivoted and actually launched the food hub early. But it couldn't have been done if we did not already have, which, I don't know if we'll have time to get into today, but we had already, these three organizations had worked together to form a cooperative around grain growers, mostly Thurston, Lewis, and Grays Harbor. And then when we pivoted the food hub, the producers all agreed together that we would just, instead of creating a new business entity, we would keep that cooperative, and they would have the grain business line and then the food hub business line. And so we have a Southwest Washington Growers Cooperative, which is an extraordinary benefit to our community to actually have a cooperative of producers, and other business lines could be added along the way. So,
What about the initiative to get a regional agricultural park here in Thurston County? Can you share any details about that?
Right, so that's back to me, so we didn't do that one. But so yes, that has been a project of the EDC. It's been a signature project for many years now that I personally have been working on, and I have to say that within the last few months, it is not just a dream. Like, we have raised considerable funds. We have raised like up to $4 million at this point. Through multiple sources of funding for the agricultural park. Just last Tuesday night, the city council for the city of Tenino passed a bond ordinance that the city is actually putting some skin in the game to have part of the funds for the first building. We have 3 tenants who are ready and willing to move in that are very exciting to us, and we've actually hired an architect, and we are in the architecture and engineering stage of the process for that first building. We have gotten money from the state of Washington that we put in sewer and water last year. So we are now working on the site in the first building. And
how long has this project?
It's been going on, and the first initial conception started back 5 years ago. So, that idea that this could happen and the need for it, the kind of assessment of one of the things I do hope we get into more of when Stephen was talking about the secretary of, that was USDA again, right? We have known, so the dreamers or the local foodies in the world have been wanting local food systems for a long time, right? And in some ways, COVID was actually kind of a blessing or a leg up to actually make people realize how fragile our supply chains could be and unstable, and that if we want to be more resilient, we have to do it at a regional scale. And so the need for this regional scale processing that the Ag Park would focus upon, we've known for a while, but to actually start to see, the different pieces and partners and funding start to come together to actually start to put these pieces together. And then they certainly feed off each other. What we're working on with the Ag Park and what we're working on with the Food Hub and other projects in the region, we really are approaching it regionally. And we have partners across multiple counties and at the state and federal level. And it is really a team effort, and I feel like I'm rambling now. So,
Well, picking up on that, you mentioned that other programs and how they fit together. Are there other programs, kind of regional scale, that you wanted to highlight in terms of you're working on, Steve?
Well, yeah, I just want to put in a pitch at the moment, just I think a good transitional comment regarding the Ag Park. Getting to this piece around building infrastructure in the region. That's been a long-term effort, so I'd add that piece, and part of that infrastructure we've talked about is the food hub, a distribution network, processing capacity at the Ag Park. One of the threads that ties a lot of this conversation is actually the backlog in livestock processing that occurred due to COVID. That's an incredibly huge need to expand both WSDA, Washington State Department of Agriculture processing capacity, as well as USDA, U.S. Department of Ag processing capacity. There's potential to identify and locate some of that infrastructure, potentially at the Ag Park. Of course, anytime you locate a processing facility for livestock, it's going to raise eyebrows around making sure it doesn't conflict with any other uses of the site. But nevertheless, it's really needed, and that Ag Park creates an opportunity, whether it's there or elsewhere.
Was there some state legislation that was kind of being batted around regarding trying to solve this problem? Or?
It has been debated whether to allocate some of the USDA oversight to WSDA. I don't want to misquote the current status of that legislation, but sometimes it runs into issues and doesn't always occur. But that kind of an investment would be really huge. So we've been keeping our eye on that. I've done a lot of work in the last few years with grazers. I did bring this frozen beef from Colvin Ranch here that is part of our bouquet up front. But getting that kind of product to market easily is really important. We've got a really vibrant grazing scene in the county and in the surrounding region. There's a conflict I've been working on between pocket gophers and other threatened species on prairie land and grazing. So we've been conducting research through WSU to document the compatibility of grazing operations with habitat and species protection.
You've had some good results from that.
We have. We've been able to show that we can improve the ecological value, both as in native plant species richness and diversity, as well as pocket gopher occupancy on these graze sites. So you can't always do everything with working lands. You have to have some habitat set aside that's rich and doesn't get grazed, but you can do so much with that grazed ground and grazing businesses as partners. So that's been exciting to see that take root. And just one of those bottlenecks is that processing capacity, so we'll keep our eyes focused on that going forward.
Great. So there's USDA data that I've looked at that shows that there's like $176 million in annual revenue from agriculture in Thurston County. But to me, and I think you guys would agree that there's all the food security and systems and economic importance of agriculture to our local economy, but it's also part of our culture, like what it feels like and to live and work in Thurston County. So kind of summing up some of the programs that you've talked about, kind of taking it up to a higher level, what is the vision for agriculture and what would you like to see in 20 to 30 years? What place would you like to see us have gotten to through these efforts that you've described?
Yeah, first off, I just want to say it is part of our heritage in our community. It is also a lifestyle that people respond to. The mission at the EDC is to create a thriving economy that matches the values of the people who live and work here. So we're not trying to chase smokestacks, right? So developing local food, craft beverages, outdoor recreation, arts and culture, those are like place-making, quality of life kind of economic development, and that is a huge focus of what my work is and we see this agricultural work fit into. So like with the Ag Park, while we would love to get the meat processing there, Tenino historically has lots of ranches and Stephen's predecessor even explored the idea of a Tenino brand of beef. The first building is really going to focus more on the agritourism component, and it's right, the Ag Park will be dead center on the Thurston County Bountiful Byway. It is a place that we will create a destination that will put Tenino on the map and drive people to come to Tenino. It is that placemaking, that quality of life of how do we want to live on Earth? Who do we want to live on Earth? For the Ag Park, we feel like that will set us up to then have a successful location that can lead to adding some of these other components like the meat processing. But we do realize we have to create spaces and create places. I also just, we kind of skipped over it with the food hub, and I'm sorry this is a side, and I'll give Stephen a shot to talk in a minute, but with the food hub, we had a really robust kickoff to the food hub because we partnered with Pack Mountain Workforce Development for the first time in these efforts, and they were actually able to do training and funding that allowed food security efforts across all 5 counties that they service. And so we started off just serving, we served 100 out-of-work families with weekly boxes, and then trainings on how to use this farm fresh food, how to cook it, how to preserve it, things of that nature. But what that allowed us for the logistics is we actually had to plan how to get food, in from the farms and then out to 5 counties. And so that Pack Mountain piece really allowed, and they provided workers, they actually paid for people to be drivers and to pack boxes. The Port of Olympia actually provided an in-kind warehouse for central aggregation in Tumwater, which was perfect because the counties we were serving were all around, and Tumwater was truly centric. So I mean, I know I'm all over the place there, but I do want to give that shout out to Pack Mountain, but I also want to say, we're focused. Our job is so much to focus on the farmers and to help agriculture become a viable business, right? We want our farmers to be able to actually make a living and be able to send their kids to school through farming and providing food that we all enjoy eating. But there are, certainly in COVID really demonstrated this need for food security, and to be able to tie those two together is to actually assist farms and help people in need at the same time has been an extraordinary benefit of the last year.
One of the things that I've learned as my 2.5 years as commissioner is, agriculture, it has so many strands that go into it. I mean, you can talk about it as an overarching concept, but you're really talking about, what dairy farmers need and go through, and what cattle farmers need and go through, and, what, regenerative, smaller operations might need. And I mean, then there's micro farming, there's so many different pieces of it, and trying to weave it all together and, meet the needs of what's a very, what's the word, variegated, I guess, diversified, area of the economy and a culture. That probably makes your job challenging.
It does. It's a very diverse county. But I mean, I think what you're getting at too, one, we have diversified production, but then we also have to support it in all these different ways. You talked about the things that agriculture does for us in terms of way of life, perspective, health, a culture, sense of identity, open space, economic benefits. I mean, my vision for agriculture, I think, stems from this concept of, if we want agriculture to support us in the bad times, which we've seen the last year, we need to support it in the good times. And I think we have to support it in this myriad way. And I like to think of it in terms of agricultural viability. Aslan's been describing a lot of the infrastructure that's needed for that, to be able to get that food out, not just to people who can pay, but also those who can't pay, but just physically getting a distribution system. I think we really found and saw with COVID-19 that, one, people got a bit of a food scare, but ultimately this agricultural community and system can't support us right now. We're in a globalized food system. And we're not going to change that overnight. We probably don't want to change it overnight. It's this balance. But have we come too far with this kind of far-flung dependency? And I think some people have that question. So we just need to look at that. I don't think we have to kind of take sides on that topic. I just think a lot of us agree we want to rebuild and strengthen this local and regional food system. So my vision is, what do we need to do to keep onboarding farmers? What do we need to do to protect as much land as we can for viable businesses, not just land that's set aside? What do we need to do in infrastructure to, build out processing capacity, not just one ag park, but, 3 ag parks, whatever it may be, to build this vision where we really have business opportunities and people can go into farming and they can also get dental service at the same time. They don't have to sacrifice, and you just have this small cohort of the most dedicated people who will sacrifice everything, for this passion of running a small business, because it's getting that way. There's so few farmers out there, and I think we all know that. So we just need to keep building the capacity for really viable agricultural systems so that it supports us when we really need it to in the future. And that could change quickly. So I think we've seen really good gains, and we've got a lot of support, and we're on the march.
Aslan, what does it mean to be a strategic alliances director for the EDC?
Lord knows, it means that I do too many things under one role. But I actually stole that title. It's a fun title from a friend who worked at the Association of Washington Cities. But
Meade Aslan is an extraordinary networker and supports so many of our efforts.
it really, my job is to build relationships. So to initiate new relationships, to strengthen old relationships, to bring people together. And I am very grateful the EDC, both the quantity and quality of relationships that we have is our greatest strength. You know, now when we are trying to achieve a certain initiative or effort, we can look at who needs to be at the table, and we can bring anyone to the table to achieve ends and goals. And that is my strength, and that is the strength of the EDC.
So the EDC is our county's Economic Development Council, and I can tell you that the commissioners relied on those relationships and those partnerships that you've helped develop and the EDC trades in when we were trying to figure out how to deploy federal money into our community to help COVID-19 response. And that was a great illustration of what you guys have been able to accomplish over there.
My boss, Michael Cade, the executive director of the EDC, has been very much a visionary, and he has taken our EDC in directions that most EDCs have not gone, but now most of the EDCs are starting to go in that direction across the state. But he had the foresight that we needed a regional economic development plan and a team put together so that we were coordinating efforts at least through Thurston County, if not farther. And so that effort actually started in 2016, and it really allowed us that when COVID-19 hit, it was pretty much already in place, and we can just transition, and we became Thurston Strong. So, and thank you for the county support. I mean, the county has been extraordinary over the last year, and Stephen has been an extraordinary advocate to the county and with the county for agriculture to make sure that we were taking care of our farmers. So
Stephen, before we wrap up, tell us what other things WSU Extension is up to that you might want to highlight.
Thanks. It's a big program. I'd probably be a bit remiss. I work with the ag program, but Extension's got 4 other programs as well.
Right.
Youth leadership program, master gardener, master recycler, composter, nutrition education program. Some of our team there help with those instructional videos on how to cook with local food. And then a water resources program, and they do a lot of work with rain gardens and stormwater. And it's a full slate for the ag program and all those program leads. We're really fortunate to have the county support Extension. All 3 commissioners have been very supportive. We're just up to too many things, I'd say, as well. We get a little too busy, but we're just keeping true to form. I don't know, without launching into a whole nother program area, I should probably just cut it off there.
Well, I can jump in and say I know that the county has undertaken an effort to review our agricultural policies from the county level and county code, and I know that you did some survey work for us to help us, and the Agricultural Advisory Committee is helping us kind of harness community input as to what the needs are from that level. So that's something that I'm looking forward to working on. It's going to probably take most of this year and spill into 2022. But
you got an interesting set of policy review to undertake with that CPA 16 community-driven review of agriculture. So that'll hopefully result in some policies for land protection and development rights transfers. As you mentioned, I did help a bit with that. I would like to finish off with on a related note, actually, just to mention, it has to do with the ag park, and it has to do with some future direction that we're moving in, is value-added processing facility for minimally processed produce.
All right.
I'll think of it as
unpack that for the people.
A test kitchen for taking something like this, which is pretty darn difficult for a hospital or a school district to work with, and turn that into a peeled, cubed product that can go into a soup or a casserole much easier. And that's some of that capacity, to just make it easier for our local businesses to use local product and create a new market opportunity for farmers. So we've been chasing that dream for quite a while. It could fit into the ag park, but it goes into the infrastructure and processing capacity we've been so needing in this area.
And what's the biggest thing that has to occur to get that moving forward?
Probably a pretty sizable investment in a facility, whether it's at the ag park or somewhere else. But you need that. What we see is processing facilities going to central Washington. and leaving. And we need to rebuild that capacity here in this area. So that'd be the biggest investment.
And we did get some funding, a small amount, but we got some funding from the Port of Olympia to buy some small scale equipment and start a pilot project this year for this specifically. We've been working with the Farms to Institution program for our Washington State Department of Agriculture, and they have identified school districts specifically are just desperate for this. If you could just peel and chop the carrot, if you could just create a slaw mix of cabbage and carrots that they can, because most of our schools have lost the capacity to actually cook. They have, they can assemble things in their kitchens, and so we know that there are school districts ready to buy this product right now. We're also learning that restaurants are going more and more in this direction, and so creating a product like this, we know there's an ever-growing market out there for it. So.
Fewer sloppy joes, more fresh vegetables, right?
Less pink slime, please.
All right, well, thank you again for joining me today, Steve and Aslan. This has been a great conversation, and I appreciate your time, and I know the community is going to benefit from hearing everything that's going on, and we'll hope to get some more awareness and support for what you guys are doing. For everyone watching, if you want to check out the Southwest Washington Food Hub, visit shop.swwafoodhub.com, and thanks. See you next time.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.